So let's just say, for the sake of discussion, we have a buyer who wants to see 2 to maybe 3 different properties. Either they send them to you or you are sending them to them. Something that I always recommend doing when you do have a buyer client, right off the bat, when you have a buyer client who's excited to start going out and looking at property, to add them as a contact, but also add a cart to them. On the home screen, you will see carts, that these are all previous carts that I have made on here for different clientele. But the easiest way to start a new cart is to actually start with what properties you want to go into that cart. So let's say, for the sake of discussion, you want to do a search and you have a buyer client who's looking for property in Mission Viejo, right? So let's just go down the line here. Mission, I don't know why that is losing connection in there, right? Mission Viejo, and they want to find property. They want a 3+ bedroom as a single family residence, and they want to try to stay somewhere between 700 to 800,000 in Mission Viejo, right? So there's 13 results. So let's say out of those 13, they want to view, these 3 for the sake of discussion today. I have not looked at these. As you can tell, it still has the blue, meaning I've never clicked on them before. But let's say they want to see these 3. Now, the first thing that I would personally recommend you guys do is to go to carts and then add to a new cart. So I'm going to call this cart test, buyer, and I'm going to create a new contact, and I'm going to call this test buyer. And then you have to put in an email address. I'm just going to put in my personal email address. Okay. And I'm going to say save. And then say save. And right there, as you see at the top left, it says added 3 listing to test buyer's cart. Okay. So right from there, it shows, because here's a drop down with all of my carts that I have, but specifically here's test buyer. So what you can do is go directly into and say view to view this cart, and it takes you into these ones. That way you can keep tabs on all of the properties that you think would be good for your buyer. But more importantly, at a one-click notice, you'll be able to go back and to see, are they still available? That way you don't have to save a search and keep running it and all this. It saves them, okay? So then let's say I'm going to actually show these to them. What I would first do is I would actually look at the listing. Obviously, we would text the agent, call the agent to set up the showing based upon the showing schedule. So I'm not going to be going over, the texting and all that stuff. I'm just assuming that all 3 of these were able to show. Okay. So let's now talk about what I would do at that point. Okay. The first thing I would do would be to look at the pricing, looking at how many days on market it is. I would also go into here, and I would take a look to see, the person's name, the tax records, and what I would be looking at is how much, if there's any special assessments, anything crazy going on there. Also, I like to always look to find out when they bought the property. So it shows the last market and sales history was back in March of 2015. Okay. And you can also scroll down to see when they had some mortgage on there. So they had a mortgage or a loan at that point in 2015 of $591. I always like to see, maybe are they over encumbered? Do they have a ton of equity? Or, maybe they're just, a regular old person who maybe refied or just when they originally bought it, right? So what I like to do is I like to print this. Now, if you have a printer right next to you, you can print it and then keep it next to you. Or what I'm going to do for the sake of this training, I'm going to save this as Via Navarra Tax, right? And I'm going to save something on my desktop as a folder, and I'm going to say test showing folder. Because in case you guys don't have an organized desktop, just to kind of keep everything together, I'm going to save this in a folder for my showing for today, right? So everything I'm going to do right now, I'm going to save into here and say Via Navarra tax. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look on what that subdivision was, Castile North, and I'm going to copy this because I'm going to do a market evaluation, a quick one, where it's basically just going over what are the sales in that tract. So I'm going to open a new tab. That way I have them right next to each other here. Or I'm going to say coming soon, active, active under contract, pending, and closed over the last 180 days for right now. I can modify this if this looks weird later. So I'm going to say Mission Viejo. And I'm going to paste Castile North and select this. So it shows that there were 7 sales in the last 6 months, or at least 7 matches that match into here. So there's 1 that's that's active, which is the one we're going to look at, 2 that are in escrow, they're both under contract, and 4 that have sold. And I'm going to look to see how many of them are relevant to this sale, right? Because this one's active, it's 1326, and there's one down here for 2,100 square feet, not the most relevant. So I only really see one that's kind of close to this one that is closed, and these other ones a little bit larger also. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see between the last 365. So there were 15. So now let's look at the closings. Still a little bit larger, but some that are more relevant in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into criteria and living square footage. I'm going to say 1,500 and under. And as you can see, I'm just kind of doing the guess and check method of between 726 to 873. I'm going to select all of these. So all 6 results between 0 and 1,500 square feet. I'm going to print. And the prints that I like to do personally, now you can change these as you like, but I like just using the multi-map and the quick CMA. Because this is going to print out 2 to 3 pages, depending on how many pages the multi-map is. It's probably going to only be on 1 on there. Cool, I like it. So it shows where they are in the tract and the bullet point list with averages in here on things what have sold. So that way I can share with these people, okay, cool. Here are all the sales in the tract in the last year that are under 1,500 square feet and where in the tract they were. So I'm going to save this as Via Navarra CMA under my test showing. Okay. Now I would do this same thing for all 3 properties, but for the sake of your sanity, I'm not going to do that for all 3 properties just because I don't want this to be an 1.5 hour long training video, but you guys get the point. So the first thing I would do, get them all into a cart. And then for each one of these properties, we do a quick CMA and a multi-map of the sales that are the most relevant to that. So that way you're able to say, hey, now that we're in the property, let me share with you the other homes that have sold in the neighborhood that are most similar to this one. Now, depending upon how many results you get, you can either, as you can see, I started with 6 months and then I expanded it out. And I also, because there were so many, I then narrowed it down to the most relevant to this particular one. Now, obviously, we're going to have to kind of guess and check as time goes along based upon your results, but this is an example purpose. But what we would do, I would select all of these that we're going to show. And then under actions, I personally would recommend clicking Cloud CMA. Now we've done this on the listing side on doing an actual CMA, which it defaults to doing. But what I'm going to do for this one is I'm not going to do a CMA. I'm actually going to do a buyer tour. So what we're going to do is create a new buyer tour, and you call this, you know, test buyer, right? You obviously title it the actual person's name. And it pulls, as you can see, the listings that we did on the MLS, those 3. So you say fetch listings. Now it will show up now, and it'll have a map here when it loads. And it'll have a map of the 3 properties that we chose that are in our cart here. Now at this stage, what I would personally recommend doing is ordering them based upon the order that you're going to show them. Now, because I started with only doing Via Navarra, I'm going to add that one first, just to show you as an example. But obviously, you would do the one that you're going to show it first and order it based upon that. And also, it gives you another time to be able to remove them or add a new one right from here. But at this stage, you say customize report, just like when we do the actual CMA for when you're doing a listing. Now, this is where it remembers the last time you did a buyer tour and how you want it. Now, if you guys remember on the CMA portion, I had a custom listing presentation package that was about me. I've done the same thing here for buyer tours that I called how to get your offer accepted. Now, but as a reminder, if you don't remember how to do that, you click on the top right-hand corner will be a circle. It'll have your face if you've uploaded a photo. Or it will have your initials. And then you just click on custom pages. I'm going to open in a new tab so I don't lose this page here. And then you scroll down when you're under custom pages. You click upload a PDF. And then you choose the PDF that you want to upload from your computer. And then it will be loaded under custom pages here now that I'm back to my buyer tour section. Okay. Now it defaults to calling it a buyer tour. I like to call it something different. Like I'll call it Mission Viejo Home Tour. Right? And then you click save. So now it's called Mission Viejo Home Tour. Now you can choose to do as little or as much as you want on here, but just to kind of keep this simple, I'm just going to say publish report. Now, as you can see, it already added and it already processed this whole thing. So it will say Mission Viejo Home Tour for test buyer with a map of where you're showing them. Then a map of the listings themselves in the order that you placed them. And then whatever you had on here. Now, I just had it very simple where all it is the details about the home. I don't have any photos on here just because I don't want this to be a huge package. It's already 24 pages. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this and I'm going to say buyer tour. Now this is saving under my test showing folder because if you guys remember, everything is being done in the same place. Obviously, I would have the tax sheet as well as the quick CMA for all 3 of these. But again, for sake of time, I didn't include that. So if you notice it did add automatically my getting an offer accepted, everything here. Now, if you were doing this at the office, you could print this right here and then print all the other things that we added. But because we're doing this electronically right now, I'm going to show you one extra step, which is going to wherever you saved it, which if you remember, I saved everything under test showing. And I'm going to open my buyer tour package. Okay. So on a Mac, which is what I'm using, the easy way to do this is to make sure that you have the thumbnails open, which if you don't have that already, if it just looks like this, all you do is go into this little portion and say thumbnails. and scroll to wherever your first property is that we had, which was Via Navarra. I'm going to go to the page, the last page of Via Navarra, which is page 4 here. Once I'm here, I'm going to click on Edit, Insert Page from File. Okay, so once I'm at the page that I wanted to go after, I'm going to go Insert Page from File. Under my test showings, I want to add the CMA, the quick CMA that we did, and the tax roll sheet. And I'm going to say open. So what it's going to now do, right after the last page of Via Navarra, it then scrolls down into the multi-map, the quick CMA, and the tax sheet. So for each property, you can have everything all in one document, and then it goes to the next one. Because people want to know the taxes of a home, and people also want to know what other homes have sold. So this is an easy, I'll do in air quotes, because sometimes the tech can get confusing, but again, that's why I'm recording this, so that way we can go back and see. And we can do this for each one. And then all you have to do is just say save. And now you could either email this to your client in case you want to do everything electronically, or just print it out. And I would highly recommend printing it and binding it on our binding machines that we have here at the office. So now we have our package, okay? So I think we can all agree that this is a very professional looking package that's going to be more than most people do, because most people just print out the MLS reports, okay? And they just give them the customer printout of the MLS. I would also recommend printing out a copy of the MLS quick CMA and the multi-map for yourself, as well as when we're back here under the matrix thing, also printing out an agent full for yourself. Okay, printing out an agent full and also a quick a multi-map. That way you have at your disposal the actual agent remarks and everything like that that we know we need to follow.